What if the cycle of violence could truly end with us, with you, with me? Let me rephrase this in a different way. Can peace truly begin with you? I love the song Let There Be Peace on Earth. I don't know if anybody knows this song, but when I go Christmas caroling, we most of the time finish our Christmas caroling with that song because it does begin with me. I
Mhm.
love the quote of St. Francis of Assisi that says, "Preach the gospel at all times, if necessary, use words." We are the peace we want to see in this world. And so violence isn't just what we see outside of us, but it's the anger, fear, and pain that we carry within us. And I have been waiting for this day for a long time. And it's the beginning of the year. It's the beginning of the year. And we're going to start with Carol Howe. She is, if you look under a course of miracles, a course in miracles, you will see her picture there because she was trained by the original person who founded A Course in Miracles. And when you sit and speak with Carol Howe, you feel like the Bible has opened, or you feel like you're just getting wisdom poured onto you. So if you're finding yourself that there's a lot of violence around you, or you're hooked onto the television because that's where all the violence is highlighted, then it's time to pause and listen up. If you're watching, listen up. If you are if you're watching or you're listening, listen up. So here we go. Because we're going to learn some new truth with Carol Howe. So get your pens, get your papers, because we're going to take a lot of notes and learn and grow together.
And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here waiting for you.
Hi, my name is Lily McDermott, and I am a certified life coach, a certified holistic cancer coach, and the host of the Lily McDermott radio show, Classroom. If this is your first time in the classroom, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friend, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. As I said earlier, it's always such a treat to have Carol Howe in the classroom. I feel that I could sit at her feet and just listen to her stories all day long. And we're starting the new year with Carol Howe because we need to set it straight. With so much violence happening in the world, it's got to stop. And the only place it could begin is within you, within me, with all of us. So, who else to talk about the end of violence, excuse me, the beginning of peace, other than with Carol Howe? And since it's our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that the beautiful Carol Howe is here to do just that. Thank you so much. You could be anywhere, and you've chosen to be with me and us
Oh,
here. Thank you so much.
oh, you're so welcome.
I just love your wisdom. So, because of all the violence around the world, Carol, I said, let's just start with this conversation as 2026 is here. I cannot believe how fast this year went. Last 2025 has gone. And so I just wanted to, share a little bit about your background, and then I want to dive into the peace that we long to see in this world, how we can start within ourselves. So share a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive deep into peace and
No,
the end of violence.
I was introduced to A Course in Miracles um, 50 plus years ago, back in 1977. And in the next year, in 1978, I had the great good fortune of meeting Bill Thetford. how that happened was the universe really had to be creative with this one to make all the details work out so that our paths crossed, but they did. And we became very close friends. And he lived in San Francisco. I lived here in Denver at that time. I was gone for a long time. Now I'm back in Denver. And so he used to come and stay with my family, and I used to go stay out there with him. And my husband was not alarmed because Bill was a gay man. Actually, kind of by his own acknowledgement, he was more a bisexual man, but all of his private life was with men. So therefore, when I would go stay with him, this was not an alarming situation one way or the other. And then the next year in 1979, I taught my very first class, and I've been teaching classes ever since. literally all over this country and all over Western Europe and places like Russia and Ukraine and South America and uh, all over down in the Virgin Islands and so on, because I think the message is so incredibly important that you can't hear it often enough. And you certainly want to make certain that I would want to make certain that it's as available as possible to as many people as possible, because we are not taught in our normal schooling, shall we say, under most circumstances, the most totally important fact, which is we are constantly creating our experience through the focus of our attention. And now we've been taught, well, other people and things and circumstances and weather and whatever else is creating our experience, and we have to just sort of adapt the best way we can. Well, that would be quite pathetic if that were the case. The big case is our thoughts, you must hear this and pay and sort of hold this close. And that is, our thoughts create our experience. In other words, the train of thoughts through my mind is in real time. It's not like I think something today and 2 years from now there'll be a result. It's like this is immediate results. That the quality of my thinking, the nature of my thinking, what I pay attention to, what I want for others, all of those things are determining the quality of life now. And of course, the big three are relationships, finances, and health. And you can guarantee that all of those are going to work just fine when you've got your head straight, so to speak, so that when our highest goal, so to speak, is for the people around us to feel safe and comfortable and cared for, not only those that are immediately around us, but those that we care about at long distance and whatever, because probably the most important thing that we can pass on to anyone is that our train of thoughts as they move through our day are constantly creating our experience at that moment. It's not like my thoughts, as I mentioned today, create something a year from now. They're very immediate. And where I have thoughts of hatred or fear or guilt or I wish someone ill or something like that, since those thoughts are in my mind, the results will accrue to me and not the somebody else right offhand. And in the case of somebody attacking somebody, yes, the other person is being attacked, but they themselves are creating their experience where you're a player in their drama. And so the whole thing operates. And we're in a very interesting time. Back in 1975, 50 years ago, a very good friend of mine was involved with transcendental meditation. I don't know if some people may know about that, some may not. And back in 1975, 50 years ago, the Maharishi in India, the head Fred, so to speak, of that entire movement, sent a message to the centers all scattered around the United States and said, quote, the United States will reach its lowest point when an orange-haired man becomes president of the United States. Now, nobody had any idea what that possibly meant 50 years ago. I mean, it was kind of like, oh, well, that's an interesting piece of information. And so we move forward 50 years, and it's like, well, it looks like the Maharishi was tuned into something. And the purpose is not to make anybody wrong or to have villains and victims and good people and bad people or anything else. It's to say, somehow this is a setup for us to learn. I like to think of everything as an opportunity for us to learn. And I think the most important thing, well, at least one of the several most important things, is the thoughts in our minds create our reality, and nothing and no one outside of us, orange-haired man, or, and I'm being facetious, or anything else, is going to dictate the quality of my life. My thoughts will dictate the quality of my life. And so it's like, I find that that actually this is not like a hardship or a chore to wish people well, even with people whose behavior appears to be fear-driven or hate-driven or whatever, as well as those who are trying to live their highest and best lives, realizing that everyone is always doing the highest and best of which they are capable with the belief structure that's driving their lives. So rather than saying, why in the world would somebody do such a stupid thing or such a mean thing or such an irresponsible thing? It's like, it's not that you're condoning what they're doing, you understand where it's coming from. And where you understand where less than loving things are coming from, then it would be wonderful if our job would be, rather than condemning, judging, or anything else, we go, well, how can I help? How can I add a better thought to the system, so to speak? How can I see this in a way that could be helpful to them, or that could allow my outreach to go wherever it goes?
You
So that
know, I wonder, Carol, how much detachment to the outcome we must have in order to make this work the right way. Like if I have a belief system of what the outcome should be, and then there's another group of people attached to the vision of the outcome of what they think it should be, how much detachment for the outcome? If we were to experience that, how much peace we could work on with commonality. Well, what do we have in common?
it seems to me like we would do well to give up my, this is the outcome that I think ought to happen. In other words, to be tied to an outcome that may come from my intellect or possibly from past experience,
Mhm.
so that if my goal is I'm here to be truly helpful, and I'm going to follow my intuition about what truly helpful looks like
Mhm.
in any given situation, because what's helpful with this person or situation may have no bearing on what's helpful to this one over here. So if our minds are in the I'm here to be truly helpful lane, so to speak, and recognizing, and some people go, well, but that doesn't work because all these people did all this bad stuff back there, even if that was 5 minutes ago.
Mhm.
Don't forget, the past is not stored. Whatever happened 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 500 years ago, that does not follow along behind us. like a big pile of of former experience or something like that. The moment that a word or a deed is spoken or done, it ceases to exist. It's not here. It's not stored anywhere. It's not following along behind us. So that at any moment, regardless of what mistakes I may have made in the past, my now moment is brand new and clean, and I can be driven by or be directed by the loving presence that is the core of everybody. And the great thing is that since the mind doesn't know about pronouns, so to speak, so that when I want the best for everybody else, I'm automatically included in the everybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To wish that somebody would fail is to set myself up for failure.
A
People don't
100% of the
understand that.
time.
People don't
Yes.
understand that. And so with that in mind, when you said the past is not stored, but we have a capability of storing it ourselves, and that storage will stay in our body, and then it'll grow into this ball, and that ball become a tumor or a
Mhm.
bad
Oh,
health. So if
absolutely.
we know the past is not store, how do you encourage us to release that past so that it doesn't get stored in our body?
Well, we first of all recognizing what you've just said, which is hanging on to the past only hurts us.
That's
In
it.
other words, it's
Yeah.
like it's as if I'm deciding to drink a bottle of poison. It's not good for you to drink
Yeah.
poison. It's like
Especially if you're expecting for the other person to die, right? So
exactly,
that's
exactly. If you go,
insane.
I'm going to drink this poison so you will suffer, it's like lock them up in the loony bin if you think some such nonsense as that occurs. It's like the thoughts in our mind for someone else are going to accrue to us, which means I have to re educate myself, and we all have to re educate ourselves as to the power of our own thought.
Mhm.
Because you see, so, practically all of us are taught, you know what, you can think anything you want. It's your private business. Nobody knows anything about it as long as your actions are nice and appropriate, and so on and so forth. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. That's terrible advice to say your thoughts don't count. Nothing could be more important than that train of thoughts. And as we realize, wow, I truly want the best for everyone. And then you ask yourself, why would I not want the best for everyone? And you might say, well, because they're bad people, or they're evil, or they're prisoners, or they're whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter what their life plan or what their choices in life have have taken them. We still get to see them with kindness and with understanding that everybody's doing the highest and best they're able to do with the programming that's driving them. So there's never any rationale for hating somebody or thinking somebody ought to be punished or something. And if you had this vaguest notion, again, the most important idea that what you want for them is going to happen to you, then you will turn things around and realize, I want the best for everybody. That does not mean I want this person to continue committing crimes. In other words, you're not saying I want their behavior to continue. It says I want everybody to live a happier, better, more peaceful, more productive, more appropriate life. Why would we not want that for everyone?
And that is exactly what we should want for everyone. But there are many cases, Carol, that a criminal might take a child and abuse of that child, kill
Yeah,
that child. Now the parent is left with the pain, the anger, the
yeah,
hurt, the what
of
ifs.
course.
How do you help someone get through the disappointment of someone hurting you the disappointment of worse, hurting your child.
Well, what you have to do is not try to hurry up the process.
Okay.
In other words, be with people in their grieving. Make plenty of room for people to be as angry as they want to be. In other words, good. Scream and yell and pound on the bed with the tennis racket. In other words, when you feel the anger, don't stuff it. Release it in a way that's safe for both you and everybody else. In other words, that's a very important thing to do. And so it's like, and when sadness comes up, by all means be sad. In other words, whatever the train of emotions might be, let them play out fully, in whatever safe way. And when we go, well, this is terrible that this has happened, that this person has died or whatever, we have to keep remembering that this may be an old lady, or it may be a young child, or it may be a very successful businessman. That person at some level that we will not be able to understand with our intellect is making the decisions about what they choose to experience in this lifetime. In other words, so it's like nothing ever happens to us unbidden. And you might go, well, how would anybody just decide they want to be molested or something like that? Well, it's not something you decide today in your intellectual mind. This is, whether you want to call it the karma that people choose for their own learning, for their own understanding. But rather than trying to figure out why things happen to people, it would be uh, more comforting for us to decide or to recognize everybody from the worst to the best are doing the highest and best of which they are capable at that moment, with whatever the programming, whatever the fear, whatever the everything else that's driving them at the moment. And no matter how awful somebody is, they are still at the core. This will sound, I realize,
I
weird to
know.
some people. That's okay. They are still the presence of love at the very core.
At the very core. But
At
that's
the
how, and that's how God sees us, at the very core.
Yes, yes, and I, yeah, a long time ago, back when I lived in Florida, for me in the early years, I spent a great deal of time in jails and prisons, counseling people,
Yeah,
sitting.
I'm glad you followed that with counseling people.
Yes, yes,
She just
it's
went to
like,
visit. She just went to visit.
yeah,
She didn't spend the
and
time there.
and that's probably the most dramatic was one time I was in California and doing some attitudinal healing stuff with Jerry Jampolsky, and somebody, I don't know who, but was somehow related, said, will you come talk to the prisoners at San Quentin Prison? Now, San Quentin Prison is the place of the worst of the worst of the worst in the country. Alcatraz used to be, but that was torn down, so to speak. So back then, and I suppose now, I haven't kept up with my prison lore for quite a long time, but then it was like, okay, this is an interesting challenge. And going into the place, these huge gates are pulled up from the ceiling. Gates don't open this way, and then they clang shut behind you. And then there's a second set and a third set. There's no escaping from San Quentin Prison. And it was a very meaningful and odd and kind of an honor to sit with about 25 guys in a little semicircle. There's 6 policemen with guns pointed at them, because these are all primarily death row people. These are people who are murderers and who are whatever all else. And they sat there and were appropriate, and they were polite, as if we were in a Sunday school class. They raised their hands, they asked good questions, and it's like, boy, if we would be willing to see that the core truth of everybody is good and beloved, and the behavior may be completely horrible, but the presence of us is always love.
Mm.
And if you choose to see that, it was very easy to see that in these guys. And it was like, I, some of those experiences were, I will always treasure, because the opportunity to be as helpful as possible to anybody, whether they're prisoners or whether they're, people who were just looking for regular counseling help, or their neighbors or their family members or whatever. It's it's I want to say it's not an honor. That's not the right word, but I treasure the ability to do whatever can be done to help people's lives be better. So this is not a chore. It's a great delight. And I think
You
if we
know,
all
and
realize that, it would be a help.
yeah, yeah, and I agree with you, but I could also hear other people saying that were victims of a crime, saying, that memory of that crime is still maybe present in their body, the receiver, the victim, and
Mhm,
then they're there in prison with you, and you've not experienced anything other than that core love
mhm,
because you don't have history.
mhm.
So the history. There have been many cases, many times where we want to rewrite history. We don't see history the way it really happened. Do we know really truly what the cause or the root cause of the history, where it comes from? But yet, that we can have different experiences. Like you, without any history with a person, you might be able to experience them at the core. But the person who was victimized and is sitting there going, how could she go there with these men who caused so much harm? How do you mesh the two? How can we find the commonality, Carol, that someone who has been victimized and someone who wants to help the perpetrator get to their core? How do we unite these two thoughts so that we can create peace, so that we can release the trauma?
Well, I think it would be helpful to see that as long as we're condemning someone else, and you go, well, they should be condemned. They were blah, blah, blah. In other
Yeah.
words, I want to hurt them by condemning them and seeing them as less than and seeing them as criminals and whatever all else.
It's the
It's
only
like,
way you can hate somebody, really. It's the only way
it,
that
it,
you can have disdain for someone.
and the problem is that desire for their pain or punishment is going to accrue to you, because the thoughts in our mind don't get wrapped up in a little package and then brought over here and dumped into their lives. In other words, the whatever it is we want for others is going to happen to us. So we need to think twice before we think those terrible people need to be punished. I mean, that something terrible should happen to them. Well, their own guilt is eating away at them in ways that, so we don't have to be concerned about, are they being punished enough? What we need to do is to understand how life really works, which is whatever I want for them, be aware will happen to you. So if you want them to starve, if you want them to be punished in some way, if you want them to be isolated, if you want, fill in the blank with any word, be aware that the universe doesn't understand about, here's this awfulness and I want it delivered over here. It's like whoever makes the request gets the answer. So if we understood fully that that's the way the mind and life works, then we would be more gracious and we would be more understanding and we would be more interested in the healing of things rather than the vindictiveness or the getting even or the whatever. Now, people are going to mourn when something happens to somebody that you love, whether it's a
Sure.
beloved pet or an animal or your grandmother or whatever. Then mourning and feeling whatever sorrow you feel, by all means, feel it to the core, because it's not going to go away if we don't allow that processing to occur. In other words, that's a healthy thing to do.
How do you
Is
move on from that, though, Carol? How do you move
because
on from that?
if you actually do that, it will resolve itself. In other words, where something seems to drag on is where we've not accepted it. We've not said, yes, this is what happened, or whatever. In other words, we're still throwing fuel onto the fire, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to let go. That doesn't mean we forget the person or anything like that, but it means we let go of our thought processes of condemnation or whatever it might happen to be. And it
It's
really does work.
Has it ever happened to you, Carol? Have you ever been in a place where either someone has tried to cause you harm or someone has hurt one of your children, and you have 50 years today, doing this work, but at the beginning, how did you force yourself to get to that place and truly, not just because you ignored it, that it was there, but
Mhm.
that you embraced it and you dealt with it through that core value of love, which is God.
Of course, of course. I'm trying to think of, I certainly in my early years, had my disappointments or whatever,
Hmm.
but it seems to be like I learned, I don't say that I learned it from outside. It seems like I sort of knew from the beginning
Mm.
about my own thought processes are at the bedrock of whatever happens. So that it seems to me like I've I've been interested in, shall we say, metaphysics and how life actually works since I was a little kid. So it's like I didn't have to be thrown to the ground, so to speak, with, and again, that doesn't mean that I haven't had my disappointments and challenges and things like that, but I was never at a loss for where it came from or what to do about it.
Mm.
I think your question is, but what about people who have no idea what to do about it? In, in other words, and
What are those soups what are some tangible tools that we can walk away from today's class that I could say, okay, step number one. Carol
yes,
Howe said step number one
yeah.
is to,
Step number one is you have to deal with the emotions first.
okay.
That means whatever you're feeling, whether it's sadness or fury or despair or whatever it is, you set aside the story in the beginning of what you think you're sad about, and you strictly deal with the emotions themselves. And again, if it's anger, you can run around the block, pound on the bed with a tennis racket, scream and yell. If it's sorrow or sadness, then you cry. In other words, so that your emotional response is allowed to be fully there and sort of uh, experienced to the core. And the reason why you need to experience the emotions first is that when you do that, you're altering some of your brain activity, and you cannot think straight. You can't, have access to all of your own wisdom and your processing of information when you're in an upset state, which means that's why you must feel how you feel first and not mix it up with, like, how did this happen and why and what am I going to do? Do this in a more linear way, like feel what you feel first. And when finally your body chemistry has adapted more to whatever is your norm, see, that's kind of the short-term thing. Then the long-term thing is, what are my beliefs? What's going on with me that I need to change my mind about? Or what do I need to look at differently? But it's never ever going to be about blame, either of the other people or of yourself. Because if you're going to be blaming and trying to make yourself or someone else guilty, you're going to just be shooting yourself in the foot. You're going to interfere with the kind of healing process that can take place. So you need to be your own best friend in this. In other words, it's like that. You can't be condemning yourself or anybody else and expecting to be feeling better all at the same time. That's a
Yeah.
cocktail mix that doesn't work right offhand.
So I like what you're saying, that you separate yourself from the incident or the event and you focus on the emotions
Yes,
and you deal with the emotions.
yes,
Regardless of what happened,
yes,
you detach yourself and say, okay, how did this make me feel? How do I feel right now?
absolutely.
Helpless, hopeless,
Yes,
angry. And especially, now there's very little tolerance for each other, difference of opinion. I've had, letters sent to me, saying, I can't believe you have this position and you're no longer my mentor. What can I do? I can't believe for 1 second that I must believe like you in order for me to be right.
of course,
I have to honor what is true for me.
of course,
And if
of
somebody
course,
writes me a letter like that, that says a lot about them.
of course.
I'm okay with what they think, what they feel. But these are feelings and emotions because,
Yeah.
but that's happened in the past just recently because I have felt so much division where 25-year friendships are being questioned or people are unfriending and people and we turn on the television and we see this riot here and the burning down here and the all the walking away from government or deciding that I'm not going to sign something because I want you to fail.
Mhm.
Whatever the situation is, we get sucked into the event and we are not dealing with the emotion.
I was going to say, it's like we need to stay in the observer role.
Mhm.
Now, that means if upset comes up, if you see what somebody's doing and you find yourself feeling angry or sad or some other level of distress, then by all means, allow that to be fully felt so that it can settle or be
Mhm.
discharged, whatever you want to say.
Mhm.
And then you realize, well, I find it very helpful to realize, but everybody, you go, how can anybody be so stupid as to do this, or to be so mean to do this, or to be so insane to do that, whatever it might be?
Put a name on it. Yeah.
Remember,
Mhm.
everybody is doing the best they're able to do with whatever the mindset is. And most people do not understand that the train of thoughts in their minds are creating their experience. It's like if you don't know that and you think you can just keep this train of thought of how much I hate this or how much I'm against this, and that your life is going to be successful and safe and happy, think again. That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
Because you see, we have the sovereign, immense power to create our experience. What a gift that we're given, this ability to decide what's important for us to experience and thus experience it. It's like, but it's not, most people are not taught that. And so
Mhm.
we think I can just ramble on in my own mind and think whatever I want to think. And then how come I don't have a good life? Or how come people are mean to me? Or how come I don't have enough money? Well, it's like there's a very uh, tight connection between the train of our thoughts and the train of the quality of our lives. Can you see how crucial it is for people to understand that that's the way life works?
Okay, so tool number one is to detach yourself from the event or situation and deal with the emotions. Is there a step
First,
number
yes.
two?
Yeah, it's like, so once you've sort of settled your body chemistry, which allows you to sort of think straight, then is to go, okay, what I really can't stand about this person is that they're so selfish, whatever it is, whatever it is we don't like about whoever we're thinking about. And then it's wise to ask ourselves, huh, Now, have I ever, any time in my life, ever been selfish? And if you have any brain cells left and are willing to cooperate, then of course the answer is yes. And then you say, okay, and I will ask people like, okay, think of a time when you recognize that your reaction to something was selfish. It's like, and I said, let me know when a circumstance has come into your mind. I don't want to know what it is. I just want to know when that circumstance has come into your mind. And so they'll go, okay. And I'll say, okay, now here's the here's the $64,000 question. At that moment, with whatever was going on with you and whatever the circumstances of your life might have been at the moment, when you were being selfish or whatever adjective we're going to put in there, did you at that moment, not in retrospect, but at that moment, feel that you had any choice about how to behave? And 100% of the people I've talked to have said no. It's like that was the best they could do with the mindset that
Yeah.
was going on and the train of thoughts that was going on at the moment.
But not to condone it, but to
No, it
understand
doesn't
it,
condone it. It's to understand it.
to understand it.
Absolutely. It's
And
not at
and
all
and
to condone it.
and are you saying that peace begins with understanding the other person?
Well, yes, because if I can see the dynamic of what's going on, and if I can go, everybody is doing the best they can with whatever their programming is and whatever has been triggered within them by, let's say, a specific incident. Because we don't know what's been, in other words, event A can be a trigger for this person and it won't bother this person at all. In other words, because the incident is triggering something that's unique in each one of us.
Yeah.
So you could have, it's really interesting. You can have 10 people, listen to what one person says, and they'll all hear something different because it's all coming through our own filtering process and what we believe is so and so on. But I think if we keep in mind that everybody, even if their behavior is ghastly, it's the best they can do with whatever is the stuff that comes up with whatever that circumstance was that brought them to commit a crime or to behave in whatever way they behaved. This is not about condoning. In other words, it's not saying, oh, everybody should just be fine, to go off and it's not saying that at all. It's recognizing that what's called for is a kind of a kind of an understanding and an empathy and really a desire that all people become wiser and that they are become more aware of how life really works so that they don't get themselves into this situation in the first place. That is possible to do. It's like I look at my life and I can't find a problem lurking in any corner anywhere. In other words, it's like, and I do not have anything different from what anybody else has got, except I have been interested in finding out how does life really work?
Mhm.
And I have discovered how life really works. And therefore, I, I can set things up so that there aren't any problems. Problems don't just happen randomly out of nowhere. People don't just attack us randomly out of nowhere. It's always a function of where I'm putting my attention and what I believe is so and what I believe is just I deserve and what I think someone else deserves. My train of thoughts creates the quality of my life.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So let me take a little break here, a little pause as I talk about whenyouneedafriend.com. We always talk about taking ownership. And if you are seeing a lot of devastation and a lot of sadness, a lot of violence in the world, it's time to take a pause and start reflecting what you want to see. And it begins within us. So go to whenyounneedafriend.com, and while you're there, please subscribe to the website, like and follow me on all social media, and especially BitChute. BitChute, a lot of views are happening in BitChute, more so than anywhere else. So I want to encourage you to go there and check out the conversation at whenyounneedafriend.com. Check out my sponsors. Check out the Lily approved products at the website, and do whatever you can to start practicing this. At this rate, at 50 years down the road, 102 years old, maybe? No, 112. I will finally get it done. I'll get it done. So I want to also encourage you to become an enrolled student in the classroom, whether it's $1 or $1,000 a month, a one-time donation of your time, your talent, your treasure. It doesn't matter what it is. Help the classroom grow. Sharing this video with someone in your life that you would like to create peace with, and you're tired of the violence, and you're tired of the disagreement, and finding that you have more in common than you don't have in common, that we all have more in common. And I love how, as difficult it is, we want to hold grudges and we want to do all these things, it just hurts us. And I see, I want to reach to that point, Carol. I want to reach that point where I can detach myself from the situation or the event and say they did the best they could at that moment. So
Yes.
therefore, I'm going to love them where they're at, but that doesn't mean I need to trust them or bring them into my life, right?
Right. Right. Now, here's a last thing that I want to add to it. It's not just that unfortunate stuff stops happening, it's that, or is, in other words, that's gone. But your life will, the way life will treat you, the way you will, it's like, to a lot of people, this wouldn't be important. It's like I'm sort of an artist and a decorator at heart. So I recently moved into this little condo, smallest little place I've ever lived, and I just love it. It's like a little dollhouse. It's only about 1,200 square feet or something like that. So when I moved into it, it's like the walls are already painted. You can see sort of what the color is behind me, already perfect. It matches the upholstery on my chairs. It matches the framing around some paintings on the wall. And the view out my windows is at the most gorgeous view you could ask for. Gorgeous lawn and huge trees by something called the Highline Canal. In other words, it's not just that everything is okay, it's much better than okay. And I didn't sit around going, I want to pray that the walls are going to be the right color, or that or that this bush is going to be located outside the window that just matches my decorations. It's like it's as if that comes along as the frosting on the cake. So that whether you call it your intuition just guides you or good fortune falls in your lap, is what it feels like to me. I feel like good fortune just falls in my lap. I don't run around like praying that this will happen or that won't happen or whatever. I stay in the lane which I have advocated today, which is I'm here to be truly helpful and I'm here to follow my intuition to do that. And that in and of itself opens more doors than you could possibly imagine. And see, nowhere in that formula do I have anybody who's an enemy or anybody that I wouldn't wish well. I can see some people's behavior, whether it's public figures or not, that is not in their best interests. But I also realize this is where they are in their own advancing through their own karma, or they're through their own what they need to learn. So I don't need to have any opinion about that at all. I can just wish everybody well and know that that's my job.
And whatever we wish unto others comes back to us. So if we curse somebody, curses will come back. If we bless
Absolutely.
someone, blessings will come back. And
That's why
what
it's exactly, that's precisely what I'm saying, that it's like I didn't have to pray, make all of these things be perfect in this place. They just are.
But if you came into the place and say, I don't like the color, I don't like the floor, I want to change the upholstery. If your vision, you could have seen every flaw there is, but because you choose how you view things, your reality is of gratitude and grace.
And I did do one thing. I did change the floor because the flooring was, now I can't even remember. It was either gray or it was brown. And neither one of those colors do a thing for my decor and my furniture. So I immediately changed the flooring to a very light color that's got several little kind of colors in it. So that I changed because I am very sensitive to the quality of colors and what color kind of psychologically does for us. So it's like recognizing there's no way in the world that I'm going to walk around on a floor that's not the right color. So we got that taken care of right before I moved in.
God forbid that that's not the right color. That's funny. But okay. So I guess you did walk in and say, that's gotta go. But you
That's
know
got to
what?
go.
But you made
Absolutely.
it happen. You made it happen.
Absolutely.
But if there is a situation though, Carol, that you walk in and someone says, I don't like the floors, but there's not a financial means to change the floors, how do you change your vision of that floor?
Well, what you better do is back up. And you might say, instead of changing your vision about the floor, change whatever's going on in your mind that's causing you to be so limited in your financial situation that you can't afford a floor. In other words, it's like kind of go back to the core of things, because if we're doing without, if we're impoverished in some way, it's not because life is doing anything to us, so to speak. It's that there's some kind of either hatred, there's judgment, there's self blame. In other words, our thought processes are the ones that are dictating the quality of, see, my inner life dictates the quality of my outer life. So,
Mhm.
for instance, if I'm busy hating somebody, whether it's another country or whether it's a politician or whoever it is,
Mhm.
and wishing them ill, I am major league undermining the quality of my life,
Mm,
which is not smart, but
no.
it's also incredibly and amazingly unknown to most people. But the thoughts in my mind for them are going to happen to me.
Mhm.
So as long as I keep my mind, which I do, which is like I wish everybody well, whether I agree with what they're doing or what they're believing
Of
or whatever,
course.
doesn't matter. I just still wish that everybody could experience their own very beautiful, holy reality. In
Mm,
other words, that's what I would want for everybody. And whatever it is that they may have to change their minds about to allow themselves to experience their wholeness and their goodness, they will have to work that out. I mean, there's no way I can reach into somebody's mind and snatch out the offending thoughts. But I would wish that they could discover and release the thoughts that are binding and imprisoning them.
wow. There's so much that we need to continue. So I'm hoping that maybe we can continue talking about this because as I'm listening to you speak, the only thing that would cause any of us to stumble would be to be attached to the outcome. And the outcome is attached by the ego. The ego is the one that's
Exactly.
holding it,
Yes.
going, my precious,
Yes.
like the Lord of the Rings. And
Yes.
so I guess the start of peace is to perform an egoectomy within ourselves.
I love that. That's right. And you see, that will happen automatically when you say, that little prayer that was added into A Course in Miracles that Bill got for something that says, I'm here only to be truly helpful. I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me. I will be healed as I let him teach me to heal.
Beautiful.
And Bill thought that was so in keeping with the message of the Course that they inserted it. It's the only thing that was not directly dictated that he got separately and inserted.
I am so
And that's a
grateful.
lifesaver. That's a
Yeah,
lifesaver.
that's beautiful. I'm going to listen to that over and over again. And to enter everything, especially as we enter 2026, I want all of us to have that mentality that I am here to help. But in
Yes.
whatever way, I'm here to truly be helpful. And I
Yes.
believe that that piece will begin with us, because if we want to be
Absolutely.
helpful, then people will see us as wanting to be helpful. And if they reject us, that's on them. I can continue with my reality of wanting to be helpful. I love it. I love it. What a great way to start the year, Carol.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're the best. I am so, can you believe that the time has just flown?
It
It's
always flies.
it always flies. I'm telling you, I'm already looking forward to the next time you come and say yes to the classroom. Thank you
Uh,
so much. And for those of you who want to learn more about Carol Howe, you can go to carolhowe.com. That's carolhowe.com. She's got lots of videos, lots of instruction, lots of, I mean, I'm gonna start listening to Carol Howe in 2026 every morning. Every morning I'm going to listen. You're going to be my little Jiminy Cricket in my brain. So thank you so much, Carol, for everything that you do to make the world a better place.
Well, you're so welcome, and it's my great pleasure to be wherever I need to be, doing whatever I need to be doing.
Because you are so helpful, and I am so grateful. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lily McDermott and Carol Howe wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.